welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into, actually excerpts from a book that you chose.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz.
I love that book.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of zero in on like entrepreneurship and leadership.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you're interested in.
Yeah, definitely.
And Horowitz, he's actually built, some big tech companies like Opsware and Loudcloud. So he's been in the thick of it.
Yeah, he's got the experience.
So we're gonna pull out some lessons from this, especially when things get rough.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the most interesting things about the book is how honest he is about the struggles of being a CEO.
Oh yeah.
Like, he doesn't shy away from the fact that it's a really difficult job.
Yeah, he makes it very clear that there are going to be some really tough decisions.
Absolutely, some painful choices.
Yeah. So right from the start, he uses this interesting analogy comparing a young doctor misdiagnosing a heart attack to a CEO missing a critical problem in their business.
Oh, I see.
What do you think he's trying to get at there?
Well, I think it's a way of showing how easy it is to overlook hidden dangers,
Right.
Just like that doctor might assume everything's fine while a patient is actually having a heart attack.
Yeah.
A CEO could miss those warning signs in their business, and then it might be too late,
Yeah. So it's kind of a cautionary tale then.
Yeah, definitely a reminder to be vigilant.
So Horowitz seems to think that it's navigating these struggles that makes the difference between someone who's successful and someone who's not.
Yeah, he's really adamant about that.
Wait.
It's not about being the smartest person in the room or even having the best idea. It's about having the grit to persevere when things get really tough.
Okay.
When everyone else might give up,
I see. So it's that resilience factor.
Exactly. Resilience is key.
So one of those really, really tough things that a CEO might have to face is layoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
Horowitz has some strong opinions on that.
He actually insists that CEOs should handle those personally.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's not something that you can delegate.
Really?
Yeah, it's about, showing respect to the people who are leaving, treating them fairly.
Yeah.
It's got to be a tough thing to do emotionally, though.
Oh, for sure.
But he sees it as a really important responsibility.
Wow. He also shares this story about issuing new stock grants after selling off a significant part of Loudcloud's business.
Right.
It seems like such a bold move, almost like forcing people to recommit or leave.
Yeah, on the surface, it might seem harsh.
Yeah.
But I think he saw it as a way of demonstrating trust in the remaining team. It's like, this is the new direction. Are you in or are you out?
Wow. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, it's about clarity and commitment.
Okay, so there's this similar theme, I think, when he talks about demoting a close friend. And he really emphasizes clear communication. Acknowledging past contributions, even potentially offering them a raise.
Yeah.
To show that they're still valued.
It's interesting, though, how do you balance that loyalty to friends with the needs of the company?
That's a great question.
It's a real dilemma for a lot of leaders.
Where do you think Horowitz comes down on that?
I think he believes that ultimately your loyalty has to be to the company and its mission.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes tough decisions have to be made, even if it means affecting people you care about.
So it's about putting the company first.
Yeah, in the long run, it's what's best for everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. And another thing he talks about is sticking with a product vision.
Okay.
Even when you start to think you might be wrong.
Yeah.
He talks about Opsware's initial product being not ready for the world and all his engineers wanting all these features that didn't really meet market needs.
Yeah, but what I find so insightful is that he was willing to ship a wrong product.
Oh, wow.
Like, intentionally. Yeah, to learn faster and get a deeper understanding of what the market actually wanted.
So it's about sort of failing forward.
Exactly, embracing those early mistakes as learning opportunities.
But isn't there a risk to that? Shipping something that's not quite there?
Oh, for sure there's a risk.
Okay.
But he saw it as a calculated risk,
Right.
He knew they might fall flat on their face.
Yeah.
But he also believed that the lessons they learned would be invaluable.
So it's about knowing which risks are worth taking.
Yeah, and understanding the potential downsides.
Okay, so it's about choosing, features that address a competitor's advantage instead of features that are just maybe good to have.
Exactly. It's a classic prioritization problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's something that everyone can relate to, whether you're in marketing or product design or even, running a restaurant.
Totally. All right, so let's talk about hiring.
Okay.
Horowitz has a pretty unconventional approach to finding top talent.
He does the story about hiring Mark Cranny, the sales whisperer, is a great example.
Oh, yeah. What about that?
So his team and board had serious reservations about Cranny.
Really? Why?
Well, he didn't fit the typical mold, you know?
Yeah.
But Horowitz saw something in him that others missed.
So he was looking beyond just the polished presentation.
Yeah, he was looking for substance.
Right.
Someone who could deliver results.
Okay, but isn't there a risk in that, like hiring someone who's so outside the box?
Of course, there's always a risk.
Right.
But I think Horowitz believes that substance outweighs style, especially at the executive level.
Okay, so it's about getting things done.
Exactly. And Cranny's unconventional approach ended up being a huge asset.
Really? How so?
Well, for one, his reference list was full of people he'd fired.
Wait, what?
Yeah, can you believe that?
That's crazy.
Most people would see that as a red flag.
Yeah.
But Horowitz saw it as a sign of his commitment to excellence.
Oh, wow.
It showed that he wasn't afraid to make tough decisions, even if it meant letting go of people who weren't performing.
Oh, I see. So it's about holding people accountable.
Absolutely. And it also gave Horowitz insights into Cranny's decision-making process.
Interesting. So he was kind of using it as a test almost.
In a way, yeah.
So he's looking for people who aren't afraid to make the hard calls.
Exactly.
Okay, so that kind of fits with his whole wartime CEO mentality, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So speaking of company culture,
Yeah.
Horowitz is pretty adamant that it's about more than just,
Right.
perks and ping pong tables.
He sees it as a way of working
Right.
that aligns with your company's mission
Okay.
and reinforces its core values.
Yeah. He even criticizes that whole move fast and break things mentality.
Oh, yeah, he's not a fan of that.
Yeah, it seems like he thinks culture should be rooted in something deeper
Absolutely.
than just speed and disruption.
It should be something that's authentic to your company and its mission,
Yeah, I think he uses that example of the $10 a minute fine for being late to meetings with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, it seems kind of quirky, but it shows that they really value people's time.
Exactly.
Right.
Speak louder than words.
That's a great point. Okay, so that brings us to one of the most interesting concepts in the book.
Okay.
This idea of the CEO as a wartime leader.
Yeah. This is where it gets really good.
So can you break down for us what Horowitz means by a wartime CEO versus a peacetime CEO?
Sure. So he's basically saying that there are different styles of leadership that are required depending on whether your company is in a period of stability or a period of crisis.
Oh, I see.
So a peacetime CEO can focus on building culture, developing talent, optimizing for long-term growth.
Okay, so it's more about steady progress
Yeah.
and creating a positive environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
But a wartime CEO needs to be much more decisive, even ruthless.
Oh, wow.
Laser focused on survival.
Right.
Sometimes they have to make really unpopular choices, break things. Yeah.
And even fire friends to win the war.
Wow, that's intense.
It is.
Yeah, and sometimes that war might be about deciding whether to sell the company.
Right.
Horowitz talks about how emotionally draining it was to sell Opsware.
Yeah.
He even felt physically ill.
Yeah, it's surprising for someone so seasoned, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
What do you think was going on there emotionally?
Well, I think it shows how deeply personal these decisions can be.
Right.
For entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
It's more than just a business. It's their baby.
Yeah.
Letting go, even when it's the right move, can be incredibly painful.
So even if the numbers make sense, there's still that emotional component to consider.
Absolutely. And it's something that every leader should be aware of.
Yeah.
No matter what kind of company they're running.
That's a great point. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
But we'll continue this conversation in just a moment.
Sounds good.
All right, see you in a bit.
It's interesting you bring up the emotional side of things because I think that's what makes Horowitz's book so relatable,
Oh, yeah.
He really doesn't shy away from those difficult emotions.
Yeah.
He actually dedicates a whole chapter to lies that failing leaders tell themselves and others.
Oh, yeah. What about that?
Yeah, it's called Lies That Losers Tell.
Oh, okay.
And he talks about, how avoiding those tough conversations can really sabotage a company.
So like trying to sugarcoat bad news or something.
Exactly. He uses the example of a CEO who's, boasting about increased engagement on their app.
Okay.
But they fail to mention that overall usage is actually declining.
Oh, so they're focusing on like a small win.
Yeah.
While ignoring the bigger problem.
Right. They're creating this false sense of success.
Right.
Instead of facing the reality of the situation.
Yeah, he also mentions people using Ben said to justify like all sorts of crazy
Oh,
decisions.
yeah, it's classic, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
twisting someone's words to fit your own agenda.
Right, so it really highlights the importance of clear communication,
Absolutely.
especially for leaders.
Yeah, because your words carry weight,
Right.
and they can easily be misinterpreted or manipulated.
So how can leaders prevent that kind of misinterpretation?
Well, Horowitz suggests a couple of things.
Okay.
First, over-communicate, like repeat the message frequently and in different ways to make sure it really sinks in.
Okay, so repetition is key.
Yeah, definitely. And also be explicit about what you don't want.
Oh.
So don't just, outline the goals,
Right.
but also define unacceptable behavior or performance.
Oh, so it's about setting those clear boundaries.
Exactly, leaving no room for ambiguity.
Okay, he calls that management quality assurance.
He does. It's about putting systems and documentation in place
Okay.
to ensure that everyone's on the same page.
Can you give an example of what that looks like in practice?
Sure. He talks about creating a simple document called Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager,
Okay.
and how it dramatically improved his team's performance.
So just by writing it down, basically.
Yeah, it's amazing how effective that can be.
Yeah.
By clearly articulating your expectations,
Right.
you eliminate confusion and create that shared understanding of success.
So that documentation then becomes part of your company culture,
It does.
which we've already talked about. How Horowitz sees as like super important.
He draws a sharp distinction between culture and perks.
Right. Perks are nice, but they don't define a company's soul.
Exactly. Culture is about creating a way of working
Right.
that aligns with your core values.
Okay, and those values should be specific to your company and its mission, right?
Absolutely. He's really critical of that move fast and break things mentality
Oh, yeah.
that became so popular in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it seems like he thinks culture should be rooted in something deeper than that.
It should be something more than just speed and disruption.
Right.
It should reflect your company's identity and its commitment to its employees, its customers, and,
Right, to its overall mission.
Yeah, exactly.
He gives that example of the $10 a minute fine for being late to meetings.
Oh, right, at Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, it seems kind of quirky,
It does.
but it really shows how much they value people's time.
Absolutely.
Mm.
They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Right.
It's not just lip service.
And that respect seems to extend to employees as well.
It does. Horowitz really emphasizes taking care of your people, even when it means making tough decisions.
He goes beyond just saying CEOs should handle layoffs personally, doesn't he?
He does. He talks about being transparent and fair in all aspects of employee relations.
What about that story where he turned down a lucrative acquisition offer for Opsware?
Oh, yeah, because he didn't want to screw over his employees.
Right, it would have been a huge financial windfall for him personally.
It would have.
But he knew it wasn't in the best interest of his team.
That's true leadership right there.
It is. It takes a lot of guts to walk away from that kind of money.
Absolutely. It shows his commitment to building trust with his team.
Okay, so when employees know that you have their back, they're more likely to stick with you through those tough times.
Exactly. That loyalty can be crucial when you're navigating the inevitable ups and downs of building a company.
Right. Speaking of ups and downs,
Yeah.
let's get back to Horowitz's concept of the peacetime CEO versus the wartime CEO.
Okay, it's such a brilliant framework, isn't it?
It is. It really captures those different leadership styles that are needed,
Yeah.
depending on the situation.
So can you kind of break it down for us again?
Yeah.
What are the key differences between those two styles?
Sure. So a peacetime CEO can focus on, the long game, fostering a positive work environment, developing talent, optimizing for sustainable growth.
Right, it's about steady progress
Yeah.
and creating a culture where people can thrive.
Right. But when a company enters wartime, it's a different story.
It is a wartime CEO needs to be decisive,
Yeah.
action-oriented, laser-focused on survival.
Okay. They might have to make some unpopular choices.
Yeah, they might have to break things and prioritize speed and agility over everything else.
And sometimes those choices involve, personnel changes,
They do.
right? Even tough ones.
It's about making the calls that are necessary to win,
Right.
even if it means making sacrifices along the way.
So the truly great CEOs are the ones who can switch between those two modes, depending on the circumstances.
Exactly. It's about having the self-awareness to recognize when the battle lines have been drawn
Right.
and then adapting your leadership style accordingly.
That makes sense. And it seems like that wartime CEO mindset would be especially important
Okay.
when it comes to making the decision to sell a company.
It can be. Horowitz talks about the emotional roller coaster he went through when he decided to sell Opsware.
Yeah, he described feeling physically sick.
I know. He even said he was crying.
Wow. So it was a really tough decision for him.
It was, and I think it speaks to that deep connection
Yeah.
that entrepreneurs often have with their companies.
It's not just a business for them.
It's not, it's their baby.
Right. So letting go, even when it makes sense,
Yeah.
can be incredibly painful.
It can be heartbreaking.
So what are some key takeaways from Horowitz's experience with selling Opsware?
Well, I think one of the biggest is that it's okay to feel emotional about these decisions.
Yeah.
It's normal to have mixed feelings,
Right.
even when you know it's the right thing to do.
But you need to have a framework for making that decision.
You do one that's based on a rational analysis of the situation.
Right. So taking those emotions out of it as much as possible.
As much as you can.
And looking at it logically.
Right. And that analysis should include an honest assessment of your market position,
Okay.
the competitive landscape, and your potential for future growth.
So asking yourself those tough questions like,
Yeah.
are we really on a path to dominate this market?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a different path that might be better for everyone involved?
Exactly. Sometimes the best way to win is to know when to walk away.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the emotional side of things,
Mm-hmm.
but now I want to shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about Horowitz's framework for evaluating CEOs.
Yeah. He breaks it down into 3 fundamental questions.
I'm all ears. What's the first one?
Did the CEO achieve the desired results
Okay.
against a set of objectives that were actually challenging?
So it's not just about hitting your numbers.
Right.
It's about setting the right targets in the first place.
Exactly. It's easy to look good when you're exceeding low expectations.
Right.
A great CEO sets a high bar
Oh.
and then figures out how to reach it.
So it's about pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, it is.
All right, what's the second question?
Did the CEO build a great team?
So you can't build a successful company on your own.
You can't. Even the most brilliant CEO
Right.
needs a talented and dedicated team
To make that vision a reality.
to execute their vision.
And it's not just about assembling a bunch of talented people, is it?
No, it's about creating a team that's greater than the sum of its parts,
Oh, okay.
fostering a culture of excellence and accountability.
So it's about leadership, not just management.
Exactly. A great CEO does both.
Right.
They manage effectively and they lead with vision.
Right. So what's the third and final question?
Did the CEO articulate a clear vision
Okay.
and strategy for the company?
This seems crucial. You need to know where you're going.
You do. A great CEO can see beyond the immediate challenges
Okay?
and articulate a vision for the future
Right.
that inspires and motivates their team.
So they're not just putting out fires.
No, they're setting a course for long-term success.
And Horowitz believes these qualities are essential,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the size or stage of the company.
He gives the example of a startup CEO
Okay.
who was very successful during a period of hypergrowth,
Hmm.
but struggled when things slowed down.
So even if you're a rock star in the early days,
Yeah.
you need to be able to adapt and evolve
Mm-hmm.
as your company matures.
You do. Different phases of growth require different leadership styles.
It's about being flexible and self-aware.
Absolutely. And constantly learning and growing as a leader.
And a big part of that growth is learning to separate your emotions
Mm-hmm.
from the decision-making process.
Especially in those high-pressure wartime CEO moments.
Right. Horowitz tells that story about almost firing a key executive
Oh, yeah.
based on his emotional reaction to a situation.
He was angry, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was ready to take action, but then he realized
Right.
it would have been a huge mistake.
It would have been.
So sometimes you have to go against your gut
Yeah.
and really think things through.
Absolutely. It's about keeping a cool head
Right.
when everyone else is losing theirs.
And sometimes that means having those tough conversations,
Yeah.
even with people you're close to.
It does. Horowitz talks about that balance between loyalty and accountability
Right. And how your ultimate responsibility is to the company.
to the company and its success.
He says something like, your loyalty as CEO has to be to the employees, not just to your executive team.
It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued.
Right. Regardless of their position.
And part of creating that culture is fostering open communication
Yeah.
and feedback.
Horowitz is a big believer in giving direct and honest feedback.
He is, even when it's hard.
But it's about doing it the right way,
Right. It is. You have to be authentic and come from a place of wanting to help.
not just tearing people down.
Exactly.
And it's important to be specific.
It is.
Instead of just say, good job or needs improvement.
Give concrete examples,
Right.
highlight areas of strength, and offer specific suggestions for improvement.
So it's a dialogue, not a monologue.
It is. It's a collaborative process.
Right.
And it starts at the top, you know?
Right. If the CEO is modeling that behavior, it sets the tone for the whole organization.
It does. It becomes embedded in the company culture.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here.
We have evaluating CEOs, building a great team, articulating a clear vision.
Yeah, and fostering a culture of excellence.
It's amazing how much is packed into the hard thing about hard things.
I know, right? It's such a valuable resource.
It is.
But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listener with one final thought.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So, this isn't something that was explicitly discussed in the excerpts you chose,
Okay.
but it's something that really resonated with me as I was reading the book.
I'm listening.
It's the importance of self-reflection.
Oh, that's so important.
It is, and throughout the book, Horowitz really emphasizes this idea of learning from your experiences, both good and bad.
You're right.
You know, constantly analyzing your decisions, identifying your blind spots, and seeking out ways to improve.
It's about being humble, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
And that we can always learn and grow.
Exactly.
Even from our mistakes.
So, to our listener, as you continue on your journey, whether you're an entrepreneur or a leader or just someone who's trying to be better,
Yeah.
remember to take time for self-reflection.
Absolutely.
Ask yourself those tough questions.
Seek out mentors who will challenge you.
Exactly. And never stop learning.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, we're back for our final deep dive into Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
We've covered a lot of ground, you know, from wartime CEOs to selling a company, building a strong culture, all that good stuff.
It's been an incredible journey so far.
It really has. He offers so much valuable insight.
Right, but before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing that Horowitz lays out in the book.
Okay, sure.
His framework for evaluating CEOs.
Yeah, he has a really interesting way of looking at it.
So he boils it down to these 3 fundamental questions.
3 questions. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to hear what they are.
All right, shoot.
So what's the first one?
The first question is, did the CEO achieve the desired results?
Yeah.
You know, but against an appropriate set of objectives.
So it's not just about hitting those numbers.
It's not just about hitting the numbers.
It's not just about hitting the numbers.
It's about setting the right targets from the beginning.
Right. It's easy to look good when you're exceeding low expectations.
That's true. A truly great CEO sets a high bar.
Right.
And then they figure out how to reach it.
Okay, so it's about pushing the boundaries.
Pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and ultimately achieving those ambitious goals.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What's the second question?
All right, the second question focuses on team building.
Okay.
Did the CEO build a great team?
So even the most brilliant CEO can't do it all alone.
I can't. You need a talented and dedicated team to execute that vision.
But it's not just about assembling a group of all-stars.
It's not. It's about creating a team that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay, so how do you do that?
Well, it's about fostering a culture of excellence and accountability.
So it's about leadership, not just management.
Exactly. A great CEO can do both.
Okay, so what's the third and final question?
The third question gets to the heart of leadership.
Okay.
Did the CEO articulate a clear vision and strategy for the company?
This seems like a pretty crucial element.
It's essential. They need to be able to paint a compelling picture of the future.
Right. Inspire their team.
Exactly. And get everyone aligned around that common goal.
So they're not just like putting out fires all the time.
No, they're thinking ahead, anticipating challenges, and setting a course for long-term success.
And Horowitz believes that these leadership qualities are important,
Oh, absolutely.
no matter how big or small the company is.
Yeah, he uses that example of the startup CEO who thrived during hypergrowth, but then struggled when things slowed down.
So even if you're crushing it in the early days,
Yeah.
you need to be able to adapt as your company grows and matures.
You do. Different stages require different approaches.
That makes sense. It's all about constantly learning and growing as a leader.
It is, and being willing to adapt and evolve along the way.
And a big part of that growth is learning to separate your emotions
Oh, yeah.
from the decision-making process.
Especially when you're in those high-pressure wartime CEO moments.
Right. Horowitz tells that story about almost firing a key executive.
Right. Based solely on his gut reaction.
He was angry and wanted to take immediate action.
But luckily, he took a step back.
Yeah, and realized it would have been a huge mistake.
Sometimes you have to go against your instincts.
And really think things through.
It's about keeping a cool head under pressure.
So it sounds like self-awareness is crucial for leaders,
It's essential. You need to understand your own strengths and weaknesses.
as well as your emotional triggers.
Right, so you can make those rational decisions even when you're feeling stressed or under pressure.
And sometimes those decisions involve having those difficult conversations.
Absolutely, even with people you're close to.
Horowitz talks about balancing loyalty and accountability.
It's a tough balance.
It is, and ultimately it's about what's best for the company.
Sometimes you have to make those hard calls, even if it means letting go of people you care about.
So it's not always about being the nice guy.
It's not. It's about doing what's right for the business.
And that brings us back to that idea of putting employees first,
Right. Creating a culture where everyone feels valued and respected.
which includes being open to feedback,
Yeah, Horowitz is a huge advocate for giving and receiving feedback,
even when it's tough.
especially when it's tough. It's how we grow and learn.
And he really emphasizes doing it the right way,
Coming from a place of authenticity and wanting to help
not just criticizing for the sake of criticizing.
and being specific,
You have concrete examples.
instead of just vague statements.
So it's about making it a dialogue,
Exactly, a two-way street.
and it starts at the top. If the CEO is modeling that behavior,
It sets the tone for the whole organization.
it becomes part of the company culture.
Wow, we've really gone deep on Ben Horowitz today.
We have, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much wisdom packed into this book.
The hard thing about hard things.
It's a must-read for any leader or aspiring entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And to our listener, if you're looking for more insights,
Yeah,
definitely check out the full book.
it's well worth your time.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep diving deep.